Hello, everyone. Welcome to Critical Critique in a new show, Taking the Stand. This is going to be kind of a, I don't know. How would you describe the show, Ellie? Because you came up with it.
Well, it's
8 hours.
basically you have an opinion and we might agree or disagree and we see how it goes from there.
All right. So I've decided that the first episode is going to be on the topic of gatekeeping. So
It's a pretty hot topic at the moment.
it's a very hot topic at the moment. So what I'm actually going to do before we jump into what our kind of thoughts are about gatekeeping and whether we kind of agree and disagree, we should probably define what gatekeeping actually is, right? So
Alright.
when you Google gatekeeping, it comes up with gatekeeping is the process in which information is filtered or is that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about fandom gatekeeping, right?
Fandom gatekeeping, and I think for us, I think it's more important in this conversation rather than relying necessarily on a dictionary definition,
Yeah.
what we would consider a definition amongst fandom, and in particular with the anime fandom, I guess, because that's what we're doing right now. And
So what you're saying is time to pull out the good old fashioned Urban Dictionary and
I wouldn't say Urban Dictionary, just
it's part of the joke. It's part of the joke. Lol.
okay, yes, I know. Haha, you're very funny. That's why I didn't laugh. Anyways,
off to a good start.
absolutely. I think for what we would mostly agree on is gatekeeping within the fandom is purposely keeping individuals either out or putting up a barrier to entry to only let dedicated individuals in.
Or at the very least, highly discouraging certain types of people.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're saying is normies get out.
Yeah, it's the normies get out type of thing, but
Right. Yeah, I think that works. I think that's pretty accurate.
I'm trying not to. I'm not trying not to let my biases seep into that.
Well, I mean,
no, you have bias. Shit.
I'll just say it up front that I'm pro gatekeeping. I've become converted to the cause, I guess, via looking at the current arguments going on about it. And the reason is not because I think gatekeeping is actually a thing. Because let's be fucking real here. How the fuck are you gonna stop someone from watching anime? Right? The act, the physical act of gatekeeping people out of something is borderline impossible on the scale that we now have with the internet, right? Perhaps maybe, like, if we were talking about, like, a school club, it's a bit different, but we're not talking about a school club, we're talking about a worldwide medium, right? And not just anime either, we're talking about, like, we'll just say we're talking about games and anime and, like, gatekeeping in general, right?
And Ritsu, maybe it might be an important topic of how we discuss how we all got into anime, because...
No, I don't... No, at least not right at this point. Cause
I know, but we should bring it up at some point.
I want to kind of establish, right, why gatekeeping is becoming a thing right now, where we stand.
Okay, I get it, but I also want to suggest that maybe...
Because talking about how we got into anime is going to get us, like... Because that's the thing, right? It's not actually about how we got into anime. It's about, right, this is the current problem that we're facing, right? With gatekeeping.
I think it's an important because, like, if you see, like, a lot of these people who get into anime, like, they all, like, everyone gets into it in different ways, and especially, like, their level to entry is different. Like, for example, I started with, like, Full Metal Alchemist. Like, that was my gateway to anime as a whole.
No, I would actually, I'll actually back Bio up on this point. I think we're talking about the idea of gatekeeping is we're inherently going to be talking about how people get into a medium or genre, and at some point that's going to be important in this discussion. Not at the moment.
I'll take the L on that one. Fair enough. All right.
What I will try to just step back a bit. Ellie, what do you think about gatekeeping?
In general, gatekeeping is, yeah, it's a little bit hard because if you want to say gate, you can't, like Naruto said, you can't keep people away from enjoying the hobby. So what exactly are you saying to those who you are supposed to gatekeep if you're for it? How what it would be? It is in effect keeping people away from partaking in discussions, but I think that's really a small part of gatekeeping from enjoying animated shows. Because how many people really engage in this conversation?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I'm basically trying. I'm not. This is not my argument, but
no.
It for the most people, it's not a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
how often, how many people partake in the discussion around
and that kind of
call
gets
a random,
and that
name a random show.
That kind of gets into what I was saying with it being physically impossible, because the majority of people, like I would argue, the majority of people, as an authoritative statement, don't really engage with the fandom. They just watch what they want to watch. They might like read a forum post or a Twitter post or something about the show, or they might like interact with the fandom in that respect, but it's usually pretty passive, right? The issue that arises is, and why gatekeeping has become such a big thing before we get into like, how we go into anime and all that stuff. The reason it's become such a big topic is due to a lot of people coming into the fandom at this point in time, almost demanding a lot of very radical change. For example, a very good one is fan service in anime, which has been a debate that's fucking gone on for quite a long time.
It's been going on even before I was born. So
the discussions about, is fan service okay? Should it be allowed? All that kind of stuff has gone on. But we've currently reached a sort of an impasse in a head where we have a lot of people that seem to be relatively new, and it's very easy to tell when somebody is new because they'll come in and they'll say things like, oh, this particular thing in this show is racist. Oh, but it's actually this cultural thing from Japan where they make their skin really tan. It's not actually blackface. Like that kind of thing, right? So you'll have people that don't necessarily understand or know attempting to make authoritative statements as if they were authorities when they're not. Which I think works both ways, to be honest, right? It does work both ways. However, it's one side is the one that is demanding change, and the other side seems to be the one that wishes things to kind of stay, I guess, status quo. Be the best way to put it.
You mean conservative and progressive?
Yeah, we kind of
in a general
Naritsu,
sense, not as necessarily political.
Naritsu, to sort of add to your point, like when I sort of like Naritsu, just to add to your point, like a lot of anime is tied into Japanese culture, and when I started watching anime, I started having a fascination with Japanese culture and all these references because I wanted to understand why is it like that. And when I sort of looked it up, and you get the nuance, and it's like, oh, that's why it's like that. Oh, so it's a lot deeper than I thought it was. That's a really interesting thing.
Before you segue that into kind of how you got into anime and that kind of thing, would you say that part of the issue would be that these people are either unwilling or unwanting to go in and understand that kind of cultural nuance in a sense, and that is causing part of these problems?
I would say yes, because before, I'm not an expert on Japanese culture. I'm not an expert. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I know a little bit about Japanese culture, and I know a little about their history. So I will say that I know a little bit. But I would say that after sort of looking into Japanese culture, a bit of their history, and sort of even speaking to sort of Japanese people and having interactions with Japanese people and having experience with Japanese people, I can kind of get why anime is why anime is the way it is, and I think that's why I kind of like it. It's different. Yeah. It's a cultural it's a manifestation or an extension of a culture. I wish I could say that in a much better way, but that's kind of how I've always viewed anime. Like it's an extension of Japanese culture and the Japanese. I would say the Japanese mindset, almost in a sense. I don't want to sound racist, but
well, what you're basically is describing Japanese soft power through media.
Okay, basically that.
I mean, this is slightly off topic, but if you're talking about how Japanese, that is basically soft power, games, culture, shows, etc. America has a massive soft power besides its hard power. But Japan has mostly influenced the world through soft power. Everybody knows what sayonara means. Everybody knows Mario.
So, to put it into layman's terms, Japan is attempting the cultural victory in Civ 5.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so we'll segue.
Right.
I guess
and the thing,
I'll segue that into. I can kind of guess what Bio's stance on gatekeeping is, because that's what I'm trying to establish before we can actually start talking about things properly.
Yeah, we gotta get back on the rails. So yeah, we'll start. Yeah, with
so my sort of stance on gatekeeping is that like I feel like it's like I don't think you can stop people from getting into the medium, but I feel that like people get in at different levels and are on different tiers when they get into the community. Like there are people, you know, who don't know anything about the culture, who know nothing about Japan, and just like, oh, this cartoon, and it's like, oh, this fan service, yada yada yada. And then there's people who's like, oh, you know, I think I watched something like this similar to it as a kid. It's like, oh, I know a little bit about Japanese culture. And then you got like the really hardcore people that's just like, I've known anime ever since I was a child, I was raised on it, and I'm just getting back into the medium. Like, I feel that people come in at different levels and at different tiers. And not to sound like an elitist, but I think, like, not everyone experiences anime the same way, or not everyone gets introduced to the medium in the same way. And while I don't disagree with the idea of gatekeeping, I also feel like that, you know, people need to understand that not everyone starts out as this like ultra wet. Not everyone starts out at the lewd game server. You have to work your way up there.
You gotta
like everyone starts somewhere.
I have a question that I think is important. What are you gatekeeping them from?
That's actually a very, very good question, because at the moment, gatekeeping is used in the context of particularly online discussions involving censorship, I guess would be the best way to put it, because you have
I think what I want to gatekeep against is people that think that anime is made solely for them. Like, no, it's a Japanese medium, and that we have the privilege of experiencing.
Yeah,
like, and don't complain when it doesn't, you know, go bend to your cultural sensitivities.
Yeah, that's
it's anime.
I think that's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. Is I think that right now the people that are attempting to, I guess, gatekeep. It's weird because the gatekeeping thing kind of came around because people were accusing others of gatekeeping, and then people kind of adopted sort of the moniker, I guess, because it's the people that we're trying to keep out, right, are the people that come in and go, I don't like this, we need to change it, rather than go, this is not for me, I'm gonna get out here. Right?
Yeah, and honestly,
I think that's what people are trying to kind of keep. We're trying to create, like, I guess, a filter, right? A normie filter, if you will. That's
and honestly,
stops those people that just want to come.
Yeah,
and
honestly, I wish that Foal was here, because he'd have some really good fucking insight on this.
Yeah, he probably.
Yeah, but I just want to mention that, like, up to like anime back in like the 90s and 80s and 70s, there was like this sort of low key type of gatekeeping. Like, there was this sort of filter.
Well, it was easier to filter back then because we didn't have such a widespread.
Had
internet.
More steps to things.
There was more.
If you ever read on, I mean, just being the process of fan subbing back then, you had to have special equipment back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, to be able to edit the tapes and shit.
to actually be able to do typesetting and stuff like that. So you'd have to have somebody who was within the film industry, who knew a guy who was willing to sell something that you technically shouldn't have. And then you had to get Laserdisc, and then you needed to get a Laserdisc to VHS converter. It was really complicated, and a lot of the fan subs came with, like, booklet-sized liner notes so that you understood what the hell was going on. Sometimes you didn't even get subs. Sometimes they just, like, printed out a script and was like, yep, this is at what time code it's talking, read as you go along.
Yeah, and if you didn't have a Japanese friend, you were fucked.
Yeah.
But I feel that also built, like, a sense of community as well.
Yeah.
And you see this, like, everyone goes, like, and it's we still have a community to an extent, but it's more like it's broken up into cliques.
Yeah.
Like, and I think Noretsuno, you mentioned this in a video or a chat earlier. I forgot when that was, but it's not relevant. But, like, we all have our fucking cliques. Like, some people hang out on the Lewd Gamer server. Some people hang out with Unknown Otaku. Some people hang out with Pedantic Romantic. Some people hang out with their anime snob. Some people hang out with Chibi. Some people hang out with Forever World, and yada 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 yada. And, like, and I feel that back in the olden days, like in the 80s and 90s, and fuck, I wish we had Fall here. Like, I feel there was more of a sense of community. Like, there was more of a sense of community. Like, it was
more a sense of a wider community rather than a series of isolated communities.
Yeah, because you only got...
And I feel like there was a bit more camaraderie. And I feel that anime, like, even though I like it that's more accessible to people, I kind of feel like it's losing sort of what I think one of the things that made it appeal to me is that because it was a niche thing. Like, when I got into anime, not many people knew about it, and when I'd, like, bring manga or talk about stuff, people were like, oh, what the fuck is this? This looks really fascinating. Like, I was showing a buddy of mine, like, the light novels for Demon City Blues or Vampire Hunter D, and the guy was like, what the fuck is this? What is this? This looks amazing. Look at this fucking art. And I'll post in the Discord chat so you guys can, like, see it. Not the audience, but the guy was like, why haven't I heard about this? And it's just like, and I kind of like doing that because it's almost like, and
with the current like age that we're in, and I guess we can kind of segue that into where I am, right? Because when I say I'm pro gatekeeping, I kind of have to sort of explain, right? Because when I think about gatekeeping, I think that there is what people think people are talking about when they're talking about gatekeeping and what they're actually talking about. Because you have the side that feels like they're getting gatekeeped will think that the people that are gatekeeping just want to stop all new people from coming in, right? They just want to close the borders, no more, we're full, right? Like, that's kind of the sentiment that I'm getting, right? Is that they feel like the people that want to gatekeep just want to logistically, physically stop people from watching anime. However, I don't believe that's the case. I think that what people, when they talk about gatekeeping, are actually doing is they are saying, look, we get that you don't like this particular element of anime, be it boobies, fan service, sex, whatever, right? We understand that. However, just because you don't like it doesn't mean that everyone else has to, kind of fall in line and agree with you and decide
and
to
don't have the right to just harass people for liking it or creating it.
Exactly.
That's inappropriate and that's not polite.
Yeah, so, and that's what people that want gatekeeping want to stop. They want to stop those people from coming in and doing what they're currently doing. Because what they're currently doing is actively hurting discussions and actively kind of derailing a lot of things.
Actively getting artists banned and stuff like that from certain
websites. And also some of the things.
All right, hang on. Let Lolly go, Bio. You've gone for a bit, so let Lolly go.
And what Bio said about community and what you said, or what we just talked about with just politeness and the ability for people to express themselves comfortably within the community. I think the idea, and this is going to be my stance, and I am going to have to clarify a lot of this, I think the idea of gatekeeping is missing the point. I think what we should be focusing on is community building.
And that was actually a perfect thing to what I do sometimes is when I'm talking to people, I'll like low-key test them to see like how normal they are and if they want to get
filter, yeah.
I actually low-key test them, and if they actually pass, I'm like, hey, there's this like book series or a show I think you'd really like, and I just kind of like I'm almost like a drug dealer. Like I'm just like, hey, watch this.
Well, I don't actually disagree with Lolly there. I actually do think that I think that the use of the term gatekeeping is actually, as I was kind of getting at, is kind of incorrect, because it's not really what people are trying to do. It's kind of just the label that's been applied to the people that are just saying, look, we get you don't like this, but we do. If you don't like it, then get out. Instead of complaining about it. And I think that another common misconception that comes from the people that are complaining is that they think that, oh, well, you're not allowed to criticize this stuff. Da, 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 da. It's like, no, we're not saying that you can't criticize it. What we're saying is we don't want you to go out and harass artists and fucking call for shit to get banned and censored, right?
I mean, there's entire platforms of criticizing anime and manga. It's called making reviews.
Yeah, like, I mean, I feel like there's a big difference between saying, right, okay, this fan service is detracting from my personal enjoyment of the show. I'm not into it. I don't like it. There's a big difference between that and going, ooh, it's animated by men, and it's look at these
ironically,
most
of the fucked up shit is actually animated by women, and this is why I'm like, God bless Japan.
Yeah, and that's where I'm. And that's a common misconception of the people that, you know, are getting gatekeeped, I guess is the best way to put it, is that they think that, oh, you're just not allowed, you don't want people to criticize this stuff. And it's like, no, that's not. The problem isn't that you're criticizing stuff or like saying, well, I don't personally enjoy this.
The problem is that they're intentionally being inflammatory, like at every given turn. Like, okay, yeah. So I'm a man from the South, so I had the whole Southern hospitality thing going on. I'll gladly let people into my house because the more the merrier. But if you start taking a shit on the floor and thrashing, I'm probably going to ask you to get out, and most people are probably going to be upset about that.
Yeah,
it's the same thing here.
And the people that are complaining are shitting on the floor.
Yeah, here in New Zealand, we have the New Zealand hospitality as well. If you're polite and good-natured, then come on board. But if you be rude and disrespectful, then get the fuck out.
Yeah, and most of these people are, at least in my opinion, would be described as being rude and disrespectful, right? Because they are going, oh, look at how sexist this is. Look at how racist this is.
It gets even worse than that. You have people literally calling others Nazis and or pedophiles. Like, that is incredibly inflammatory. I don't think anybody is going or can argue that it's anything but inflammatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's very much the inflammatoriness that people don't like, and that's where this idea of trying to stop those people is coming from. Is people are getting really tired of it, and I think there's a growing kind of sentiment of, look, if you don't like it, just go. Why are you here, right? Stop trying to change. Trying to change. Oh, hang on, let me finish. Stop trying to change the medium to fit your cultural standards or like your personal tastes, and just go somewhere. Watch Western cartoons or go somewhere else, right? Because we don't want people that are just going to be inflammatory. If you've got something good to say, right, or insightful to say about the thing that you don't like, and maybe might have a valid criticism about it, right? Fine, that's great. But just going around calling people Nazis and pedophiles and fucking, calling everything sexist and racist is just not fruitful to the discussion, and it's not gonna lead anywhere.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like, you don't have to watch or enjoy it, and also, like, anime is a Japanese medium. It's distinctly Japanese in culture, and that's why I dig it, because it's different.
Yeah, and
it's the same reason why I like Korean and Chinese novels. It's different.
And if
like, how boring would it be if everything was the fucking same?
Yeah,
we wouldn't get some of the best thing. We wouldn't get we wouldn't get shows like Ghost in the Shell, Ava, or like Cowboy Bebop, which was more Western inspired. But you kind of get the point. Like, we wouldn't get these amazing shows or books. Like, we wouldn't get Vampire Hunter D, or or Tokyo Ghoul, or Parasite, or any of these other series. Just to pop, or One Piece, or Naruto. Naruto. We wouldn't get these things.
Yeah, you wouldn't get, and it's. Yeah, that's kind of where I feel like we're at, and it's weird because I feel like, yeah, yeah. So, Ali, you haven't talked in a bit. You should probably get a word in.
I'm on the video control, so I have
on the video.
people entertained with videos on Stargate and
fancy
and
lights.
garage gates.
Fancy lights to keep the people watching the actual video.
Before we swap, before we get into the aspect of how we got into the anime community as a whole,
wait.
I would
I do have I can say stuff though. I mean, I think I didn't say much, so it might be a little bit off topic by now, but I think it's really important to keep in mind who you are keeping out of the gatekeeping. Because that is really the point of the discussion. If you don't have anything, if the only thing you're keeping people out is the discussion, then all right. The answer to this is give them a way to have them included in the discussion again. And that is basically education.
Yeah, I think that is probably part of it. Educating the people as to why fan service. I'm imagining that one meme of the guy pointing at the Bible. It's like, you are a heretic. Let's go. It says you're a heretic. That's kind of the meme that I'm thinking of when you say that. Just sitting them down and just being like, look, this is what anime is. You're gonna have to kind of, you've got a choice. You can either deal with it or you can move on, right?
So when gatekeeping is even in discussion is really, really hard because people can just go elsewhere for a discussion that
exactly, yeah, they'll just go elsewhere, yeah.
So the thing is, there's only an issue when you have a person who is either very driven in his opinion, with who comes into contact with a person who is driven in his opinion the other way, or might be the same scenario where you have a person who is knowledgeable about a subject to a people who is unknowledgeable or doesn't know something about the subject and who is just making a statement. So what do you do in a situation where somebody has a very strong opinion about something and somebody who hasn't taken the time to learn about the subject?
That's a good question. I think it kind of
because then they're not the same people.
No.
I would say just let them burn themselves out, because eventually they'll hit a wall so thick that even they can't burst through it. Because a lot of these people, they tend to try and burst through walls like a fucking wrecking ball, and eventually they'll just burn themselves out.
That would mean that you don't do anything to gatekeep because you just say you're wrong or you're misinformed, and that's that.
Well,
for those particular people, yes, but for normies...
Hang on, because as I mentioned before, the physical act of gatekeeping is impossible. So I don't actually think that gatekeeping in the sense of actually trying to stop people from entering discussions and all stuff is actually possible, right? So I feel like what you should be asking, the question you should be asking is, well, if we're trying to gatekeep, how would we actually attempt to do that? And I think the answer to that question is just, you have to educate them, right? As mentioned before, you have to be like, look, this is what anime is. It's like this because of this, and if you don't like it, you have a choice, right? You can either watch something else, because let's be real here, anime is very diverse, right? There is a lot of, you don't like shonens, right? Watch shoujos. You don't like shoujos, watch mechas. You don't like mechas, watch slice of life. You don't like slice of life, watch whatever, other type of show.
Watch hentai and then join the Lewd Gamer server.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I think that when we think about gatekeeping, I feel like fiercely gatekeeping is the wrong word to be using. I think there's got to be like elitism, possibly. Not sure. Like
I said community building because that is basically
community.
what it is.
I think that would be. Yeah, I think that would be better.
Yeah, and I would just like to mention that like the anime community is actually one of the first places where I actually felt like I actually belonged, because obvious rough childhood backstory, doesn't really matter here. When I first went into the anime community, I actually found people that understood me, and people that I could just be myself and stuff, and that's what I like about the anime community. And I don't like these toxic people because they destroy the fun for everyone else.
Yeah, and I think that it's very interesting how the people that call out toxicity within the fandom, like, oh, look at all these toxic gatekeepers trying to stop people from enjoying anime. Oh, look at all this stuff shit. It's really interesting to me how the people that are crying out about toxicity are actually the ones doing most of the toxicity. And it's actually true It's actually true about gatekeeping as well, because the people that are anti-gatekeeping are technically gatekeeping the people that are pro-gatekeeping. So it's kind of like this paradox.
It's like an Ouroboros almost.
What's the word? It's like what's it called? It's the paradox of tolerance or something, where it's like you have to be tolerant of the intolerant, and therefore tolerance cannot exist, or something along those lines. It's very similar, where you have the people that are anti-gatekeeping going, oh, we don't want racists in the fandom, right? We don't want sexists in the fandom. We don't want X in the fandom. And it's like, that's gatekeeping. So you're saying you're anti-gatekeeping
whenever I hear
at the same time.
Whenever I hear that, especially when it comes from let's just say those types, they're setting up something that they can immediately accuse someone of being specifically to drive them out. It's you're entirely right. They are the one. They're just trying to be the ones who are capable of driving people out or bringing people in so they can control discussion. That is, they're making a power play whether or not they know it, because, I mean, let's face it, most people aren't conscious of this. Most people just tend to go along with what everyone else is doing. And unfortunately, especially with social media, that just seems to be kind of a thing people do now, where people are very hostile. And with anime, most of the hostility was reserved for like image boards or your taste is shit, not I'm going to try to call CPS on you or something. Which is probably the most extreme example I've seen.
I like the anime community half the time because of the fucking memes and jokes and how you can fuck around.
But we've been seeing kind of what I would describe as an escalation, I guess, in how far these people are going. And the thing is I'm trying not to get too political, right? Because the politics side of it's not really like hyper. It's gonna, we're kind of talking about it, but it's
the power play is more important than the politics behind it.
Yeah.
Because anyone on any political spectrum can make a power play. Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is that it's not just limited to like left versus right. Like all sides are doing this, right? And I think that the current issue that we're having is you've got the one side, obviously, that wants, we have to try and change everything so that we can push these people out, I think, right? We have to remove fan service because fan service draws in the people we don't like, so we have to get rid of it, right? And we don't want those people here, and we don't like that type of content, so we have to get rid of it rather than just moving to something else. Or something like that. But yeah, it's
just learning that it's a cultural quirk of anime and just kind of enjoying it for what it is. And
but lolly, everyone has to be the same.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There is no such thing as differences or cultural nuance. No, it's all one. We are all one nebulous race. There is no such thing as differences or anything about culture or point of view. None of that fucking exists.
I think you're going too hard on this. People want to change the culture, because that's not really relevant now. Japan is Japanese. That's hard to change. That's not really the thing here.
I would honestly say that it's easier to change than most people think, and underestimating that is exactly what's
leading to
what's
problems.
going to be hazardous in the long run. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but the current ruling aspects of Japanese society tend to favor globalism more than isolationism, despite any rising, political movements in the area. But that's an entirely different thing that you could probably write a college thesis on. But so. That at the end of the day, that is what the community building aspect that you kind of have to try to accomplish, is that you have to try to get newer people to appreciate what's there and be able to offer criticisms or suggestions that are either more objective and not driven by very personal standards. God, that's something we see a lot, doing this show. Just criticisms that are like, I feel.
Yeah, I think that. There I go. I think that, right? But I believe that that's a very good point. That I am more interested in people that are criticizing things from the perspective of, okay, how well is this executed? I think I've said this a few times, is like I would rather have someone go, right, how is this fan service executed, right? Does it fit the setting? Does it fit the current narrative of what they're trying to do? Is it effective in what it's trying to do? And I know it sounds weird to say that for fan service, but I think you could apply that to anything, right? So, how well is it?
It depends on like context as well. Like, what the show is
does
about.
it fit with the context, right? Like, you wouldn't have a serious show and then all of a sudden floppy titties, right? Like, I think criticizing the execution is more valuable than just going, well, this makes me feel icky, I don't like it. Because this makes me feel icky and I don't like it is a valid opinion, but it's not really that useful to people in a sense, right? Like, if I'm trying to judge, right, is this show a show that I think that is worth watching, right? If I'm looking up reviews or whatever, let's assume that I did do that, because I don't, but let's say I did, right? Let's say I'm looking up like a review on something like Fire Force, right? If I find a review on Fire Force that goes, right, the animation looks really good, you can see it, the cinematography is really good, let's break that down, let's talk about the execution of the scene and whatnot, that's great. That's the kind of thing that I'm actually looking for when I'm looking for, like, is there something that I want to invest time into watching? Not, it's got this fan service is sexist and it's icky and I don't like it, it's bad. And it's like, okay, well, why is it bad, right? I want to know why. Why is it actually bad? And it's bad because I say so, because I feel like it's bad, is not actually valid. Right? In terms of, at least it's not valuable, I guess. Like, because it's weird, because I don't want to kind of dismiss the subjective, but at the same time, it's like it's just it's not valuable to me. I don't need to know how you feel about
it. It's easy to dismiss because what use does anybody have of it?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's part of the issue, is people running off feelings rather than reality. So yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty.
We reached the lull in the conversation when we realized that we don't have anything to talk about. That's fucking amazing. We did it, guys.
Should we all just talk about how we got into anime?
Yeah. Let's segue into that, right? And I'll go first, right? Anime for me, I've had a very interesting kind of relationship with anime, which kind of dates back to when I was a kid, right? Because I started off watching television, right? Obviously. So every so often you would get maybe Sailor Moon would come up, even though I didn't really watch Sailor Moon. Cardcaptor Sakura was the one that I watched more, right?
Yeah, I remember that. That was around during wasn't it late
it used to run on one of the TV channels. I wouldn't.
I think it was.
One.
It's been such a long time, but I remember it being on. They did Tamers as well.
Yeah, they did Tamers. Yeah, Digimon was a big one. Digimon was actually the first, right? Because Digimon was hell, I would have been fucking still in diapers when I watched Digimon. Not even gonna lie. I was very, very young when that was airing, and I would watch
same
that
here as well. But I'll let you continue.
Yeah, let me finish. So I watched a lot of that, right? And then when I got into primary school, that's when I kind of dropped, because at the time to me anime wasn't a thing. There wasn't a differentiation between anime and cartoons. It was just, this is the shit that I watch, right? Right? In that respect. So I would go a number of years just kind of watching whatever was on TV and just kind of enjoying it. And it wouldn't be until I kind of got into, let's say, high school, probably early high school, maybe first year, when the internet was a bit bigger and I was kind of getting a bit more into discussions about anime and kind of, because this was when I was starting to get into the more of the Skype type days, where I was in a lot of Skype groups talking about, at the time, more video game related stuff, like Sega and Sonic related stuff, and moving into, progressing from there. But I remember that there was a point where I was like, I need to watch Eva, because I haven't watched Eva yet. Let's just go find Eva on a site. And I watched Evangelion for the first... maybe not the first time. I think I might have watched a little bit of it earlier, but I wouldn't remember. But I watched Eva. And then after watching Eva, I was like, alright, this is kind of... I'm into this. I like this anime thing. This anime thing's kind of cool. And from there, it just kind of progressed. And I would watch a lot of other stuff. I watched Gurren Lagann. I watched the Fullmetal Alchemist, both Brotherhood and Normal. And then from there, it kind of progressed, right? And then eventually I got involved with, the Otaku Blaze crew. And I did a lot of anime stuff with them. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And eventually I got pretty into anime and I started watching seasonal related stuff as it came out. And kind of from there, right, I didn't get involved in the wider community because I primarily lurked, right? I would read shit on Kiritsu's forum back when they had a forum, and I would read discussions on Twitter, or I would look at what other people in my friend groups were saying about animes and that kind of thing. And yeah, I didn't really get involved too much until actually probably recently, where I've started making connections with people within the community. But that's getting off topic. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand in my history. Right, is I kind of a slow sort of progression into getting into it, and then finding out more about it, and then getting into the cultural aspect from there as well. And I feel like my sort of story is a very common one that I think a lot of people probably share, where they'll see something when they're really young, and then not until later on in life they'll jump back onto it, typically in adolescence. But yeah, so that's my story. I'll let someone else go.
My story is different, so...
I was going to do one as well.
Debunked.
Debunked!
Do you want to do yours, Ellie? Do you want me to...
Hang on.
Ellie, my one's going to be very short.
Destroyed with facts and logic.
Yeah.
Ellie, do you mind if I do my one next? Because
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my story is very similar to Naretsu. Now, as a child, I grew up watching anime on television, Digimon being my favorite. I mean, I used to rent the fucking VHS tapes from a video shop that was in Howick. That's someplace in Auckland, by the way. And I would see anime on TV every now and then, but I really wouldn't really put I didn't really know what it is. I really couldn't put a name for it. Now, sort of where my story and Naretsu sort of diverges. The divergence point, as they say, is that due to an illness that I had as a teenager, I had actually become completely bedridden, and I actually continued to be bedridden for quite a few years. And obvious tragic thing and suffering from depression and yada 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 yada. And one of the things that I sort of got into to relieve me of that was anime. Because my stepdad had Full Metal Alchemist 2003 edition, the 2003 version, on a hard drive, and I watched it, and I was like, and I was just watching this. I was watching this show, and he said to me, "Oh," and I asked him, "What the fuck?" And in the file, it just said anime. Like, this is where it is, and it's just like, well, what is anime? And I just looked up all the stuff, and that's where I got into like, Please Teacher, and then I discovered Digimon again. I was like, oh fuck, I remember this. As a kid, I used to watch VHS tapes, and I used to watch the movie and the television. I didn't know there was more episodes. And eventually, after like a year of watching anime, this would have been like 2000, late 2013, probably early 2014 when I started getting to anime. And eventually like branched into manga, and I watched all the fucking classics. I watched so much fucking shit, and I was just like, this fucking shit is amazing. Like, I was telling my parents, like, these stories, these characters, all this fucking shit is amazing. And my family is very supportive of my hobby, because honestly, I think they believe that maybe my hobby actually is what kind of got me out of my depression and helped me go through my sickness. But anyway, and eventually, after some time, I eventually encountered someone called That Anime Snob, and I did some videos with him, because that was sort of like my first interaction with the community. And eventually my sort of relationship with That Anime Snob, it spiraled into me meeting Pause and Select, Cyanide Blizzard. I eventually ended up with The Unknown Otaku at some point, which, how the fuck that happened, I have no clue. I also got involved in the light novel community just recently as well. And I eventually ended up on the Lewd Gamer server. Ironically, with me, I tend to end up in these cliques and places and end up, like, doing things with people that I don't really understand how I actually got to this point. Like, I didn't even know, like, I only found out, like, a few months ago that I was actually part of a podcast with Unknown Otaku. And I'm going to wrap it up right there. So that's kind of my story. Enough. It's very similar to Neretsu's, except where my divergence point is that, it's because of an illness I had in my teenage years, I guess.
Alright. Who wants to go next then, I guess?
Ellie,
yeah. So basically, I don't really count the shows that you watch as a kid. You watch anything as a kid. You know, your Pokemons, your Digimons, your Beyblades, your whatever.
How dare you disrespect Digimon?
I disrespect
I will Nova Blast
day.
you to the next moon.
Oh no.
I'll disrespect Digimon as a kids show every day.
You're about to fight.
It's more than a fucking kids show, Ellie.
Okay.
Like, did you even watch and pay attention?
Okay.
It's just a capitalist trick by your light toys.
Okay, get off your podium.
Alright.
It's a lot more than that, dude.
Alright, now let it go.
But I need to start a new video. How to animate.
While you're doing that, I think I'll go, because you're gonna take a while with that.
No. I just clicked how to animate or between lessons by traditional animators.
I should actually send you this YouTube channel I found. I guess this guy's talking over like how anime is made, like the production process over there, and it looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll switch the video out. This guy's just talking about how animation works. So anyway, my story. Kid shows on TV doesn't count. My only real anime was the Ghibli films, which my parents liked, so I watched them too, and I basically watched them all, have them all, and from that really I read some mangas, and with mangas came the animes, and that never really stopped. The only community that I joined was really 4chan A, and that community doesn't really care about personalities. It's kind of their
kind
thing.
of the byproduct of not anonymity, I guess.
Yeah. So I wasn't really part of any community besides the community who doesn't care who is member of the community or who you are as a member of the community, with some exceptions, trip packs, of course. But yeah, only in the last like 3 years, I think, have I basically watched anyone in a community, like any tube or discords or forums or whatever. It's only really a very, very recent thing. So I still don't really know who people are in this community. I mean, I know Pause and Select. That's really the person who was my entryway into the animation community.
All right then.
And yeah, and meanwhile, I still watch stuff, and now I learned some more basic anime things. Now I'm in a community, so community is useful because you don't learn anything on 4chan. You just say, "I like this. This sucks."
Your taste is shit.
And that's basically the end of it. I mean, it's fine. I mean, that's being part of a discussion. But since I joined the community, I've learned some fancy words and some fancy concepts. So, it's not all bad.
All right.
But I guess I'll just wrap this part up. So, gonna be kind of a long one because this goes all the way fucking back to like shit. I don't know, like 2003ish or whatever. Or no, when I entered middle school. Yeah, that was 2003. Holy shit. Huh. Anyways, yeah. So anyways, when I was, and I fuck you, Ellie, I am going to actually count stuff I watched when I was little because this is actually kind of important and segues into how I got into the wider medium. Back when I was really, really little, I would say like 4-ish, my sister used to watch Sailor Moon around me. I liked that. Got into Pokemon, Digimon, stuff like that when I was really, really little, because that was on, that aired on Kids WB in Florida. So that's where I would watch that. Later on, I would say roughly when I was around 8 or 9 would be when I started watching things on Toonami. So I remember really liking Zoids.
Oh yeah, Zoids was good shit.
Yeah, I really liked Zoids because I always liked the robot segments and the old Power Ranger stuff. I watched with my sister. I went to the premiere of the first Power Rangers movie in the U.S. That was the real shit.
Yeah, good shit, man.
I'm old as hell, but yeah. So that I got into that. And I just, most people tend to like move on from things like that when they enter like middle school or high school. They move on to or other things. I just kind of never stopped being into things like that. So throughout middle school, we used to get these Scholastic order sheets things, right? And I would order copies of Shonen Jump through it, and what was there at the time was like Shaman King, Hikaru no Go was one I really liked, and then the Season 0 stuff from Yu-Gi-Oh, which tied into my interest too because I was watching that still. And I would say around the beginning of high school, I guess my mom was paying attention and she realized that there was like an anime kind of community or whatever, or club going on a library nearby. So I ended up just joining that, and that was kind of really when it like kicked off for me because that was when I watched a lot of the things, or I was introduced through that. to a lot of the things that I was into now. Full Metal Panic was one that was like that. Went back and watched the original sub for Cardcaptor Sakura, because I had watched Cardcaptors when I was really little, and they butchered that hell and back. Interesting story in the US, because they tried to have Shalron be the protagonist, which means they had to heavily re-edit everything, and it's like half the episodes are missing because they can't show half of it. It was a mess. Through that, Getry, just things like that. Gunslinger Girl was one I really liked. I actually still have the DVD box set I brought from Best Buy back in like 2006, 2007 on the shelf over there. And that was a really good introduction to me, because the person who ran that actually spoke Japanese. Actually found out years later that he's a name fag on M. I did not know like how I figured that out, but I figured it out. So he knew. So he was wise enough, I guess, to just kind of have people experience just about anything in the club. You know, these are people that were like, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever. So, and he would, and that, I guess, would be the type of community I grew up around. And then later on, I would say 16, 17, I discovered 4chan, I discovered fan subs, and I just started exploring shit on my own. But I think that those really early days are definitely what got me into a wider things of than just one or two shows. And I didn't even really get into like things like the Anitube community until like I started like doing this shit, and it just started. I just started paying attention more through 4chan. I ended up getting into contact with the people that ran the radio streams there, and then through one of the guys who hosted the Friday streams, Friday and Saturday streams. I just started getting introduced to people in the fan subbing community and stuff like that. So it goes back a ways, but I definitely have experience in how I think attitudes have kind of changed within the anime community with how social media has developed. Way back when I was 16, the kids around me were significantly less hostile to things like fan service and, even lolly stuff to an extent. We watched Tsukiyomi Moon Phase in that anime club, and, that ain't exactly PG rated.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show. That was really weird.
Yeah, it was Shaft at its best. I miss those days. Now,
exactly.
Now Shaft just does fucking J-dramas. It's a shame.
Or Monogatari. It's all about the pretty colors and the tilting head.
Where's my fucking jank storytelling? Goddamn. So like I definitely seen how people got more hostile now. Like now you try to like talk about anything like that, and like people that were my age back when I first started getting into it and was okay with those things like that just start freaking the hell out over it. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So I guess you're tying it back into the topic of gatekeeping, right? I think that certainly I guess I'm trying to like think of how we can kind of tie it back in.
What made me, I guess, more balanced in how I approach things, even things I don't like to an extent, is that I was introduced into a community that was more welcoming and hostile, or less, not hostile, and that early cultivation led to led to me having a healthier approach to things. And I think with a lot of people now, things like anime clubs and stuff like that, those aren't nearly as important now because we live in the age of social media. You can just find your circles online, right? And think it's because of that people tend to become more hostile and just more mean. Like, okay, God, I sound like I'm fucking old, but it's like I don't.
Dude, you're making me feel old. Okay.
No, you goddamn kids on my lawn, and you calling people
It's
pedos.
not even that. It's not even that. It's
I'm
I don't remember 4chan being this hostile, and that's a statement I am willing to stand by. I think the anime community on Twitter is actually more hostile than 4chan, because with 4chan you have the whole veil of anonymity.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Like I've seen 4chan go ham on people, and in fact, it's happened to me like once or twice on the boards. Like 4chan is like, they're trolling or la la la, but Twitter, like, some of the stuff they say on Twitter is very.
That's hard to. It's hard to get personal on 4chan.
Yeah, you're not encouraged to get personal, because if you're putting your name out there, you're a fag.
Exactly.
A bad kind.
Actually, Lolly, just to add to like your story, do you think that maybe aside from like community building, do you think what these people need is like a good mentor? Because it sounds like you had a pretty good mentor who introduced you to these things. Like with me and Naretsu, we kind of just figured this shit out on our own.
To kind of cut in before I let Ellie go on that, I think that it's less about mentor and more about just lurking. I think people just need to lurk more and get a better understanding of the community and how things work before they start kind of mouthing off about stuff they possibly don't understand.
Yeah.
But Naretsu, do you think that them having like a mentor could help? Like the young Jedi Padawan needs his hentai night?
Obviously, having someone who's more experienced guide you through is always going to help, right? Regardless of what you're talking about, right? Having someone who's more experienced.
That's what I do when I'm like introducing people to anime. Like I just give them shit that I think they may like based on like their personality, and I just say like, hey, watch these and just tell me your thoughts.
But when we're talking about community, right? When we're talking about the idea of how do we want these people to interact with the community, I think the answer to that is to just encourage them to lurk more, and just say, look, just lurk. Watch the community, look at the discussions, don't necessarily voice an opinion one way or the other yet. Like, just see what's going on and how the culture is within these communities, and then decide to kind of jump in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did. Like, I did lurk, and then eventually I sort of, jumped in with their anime snob, and then paused to select and yada yada, and, like, it just kind of snowballed from there.
I think...
hang on. I'll let Ali answer because you asked Ali a direct question, so I want Ali to be able to answer that question, and then we'll move to Lolly.
Ali?
Sorry, I'm very interested in watching this pro versus an amateur animators competition. What is the direct question?
Okay, but I asked you if having a mentor introduce you to anime and guide you through anime would be beneficial to these people who we are having issues with within the community.
Well, not as much as a mentor, because I'm not going to be a senpai to a kohai. That would be annoying.
What kind of weeb are you? Get the fuck out!
Anyway,
get the fuck out, Ellie.
Anyway,
You're banned from Loot Gamer.
Let him finish, and then we'll let Lolly go.
But having if there was more of a community, more so than just, well, I don't know, it's bad. Just because if your only community is like, it's worse than basically 4chan, that's just going, no, this is bad, this worse, no, this is harmful, this is bad because I only can reference it from my own culture. If you have a community that can explain, is knowledgeable enough to know where the influences come from, to know why these decisions are chosen, then you can educate people on it. You see, it's not really a mentor. Your mentor would be more of, the community because if you maybe take it outside of the fan anime, if you have a community fitness, for instance, if you just had a bunch of people who says from don't know, just do squats. Squats are good, right? No push-ups. Push-ups. Push-ups are good. Squats are bad. But if you have a community which has the fitness community is, sorry, I don't know anything of fitness community, but more of the amount of knowledge, the amount of people that helps with forming a good understanding of how things are, why things are, and helps you get into it.
All right. So, yeah, Lolly, you were gonna say something?
First of all, off bio, just the Kohai thing doesn't work IRL because trying to fuck your Kohai IRL is what leads to like half of life's problems. But no,
I never fuck under. I always fuck above.
I don't even really think that. Well, that'd be your senpai then. Oh, whatever. Anyways, so what one of the things I think that people try to do to gatekeep, or when they say they're gatekeeping, that I don't think helps and probably just works actively against them, is when they avoid introducing people they know to the medium. Because the way I was introduced through people I know, and I think I came out with a wider view of things as a result of it. When you're missing the opportunity to help somebody see things the way you do when you just avoid introducing them to the things, on the one-to-one basis, and then just say, I don't know, just go look it up or something like that, right? So that's something that I've seen people suggest, just don't introduce any new people. Well, I don't think that's going to help.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I straight up don't think that's going to lead to any, and this is why I said I think gatekeeping is missing the point. It's a community building thing. And I wouldn't go as far as to say a mentor type of thing, because that's a little too pretentious for me. But
I mean, I don't mean like a mentor, but just someone to be like like the guy who introduces you. It's like the guy you buy crack from for your first time.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. Or, in my experience, the guy who first runs a fucking tabletop session for you. Like, you need somebody who understands that you have, like, basically no reference point and, can help you get into that.
I mean, by mentor, I kind of mean that. I mean, if you want, like, a mentor to help you, I guess that's fine. But by mentor, I mean, like, someone to, like, give you, like, a push in the right direction as far as, like, oh, you want this? Like, oh, you into this shit? Here you go.
No, I mean... And anime is an art form, so it's like, art is meant to be shared and seen by people. It seems completely counterproductive to just, like, tell people, no, this isn't for you, fuck off, go away. And it doesn't, for me, that doesn't, I don't feel like that, that helps at all.
I'm gonna go now because I don't have any more to contribute to the discussion, and also I've got Werewolf the Apocalypse, so see you fags later.
Fair enough. I'll catch you later. Catch you later, Bo. I think we're getting close to kind of wrapping up anyway. So I guess in terms of the discussion on gatekeeping, we kind of have to think about, what is the solution, right? Because we currently have this divide. How are we going to attempt to fix this and attempt to do this community building that we've been talking about? Or is there even a way to fix it? I guess would be an even better question.
My solution is a educated community, and that is hard because Sorry, I got something in my nose.
Yeah, it's all good.
An educated community, but it's hard because we have, of course, our favorite YouTuber, Maname Matt, who is quite adamantly not interested in learning anything about whatever video he makes on. I mean, I think people like Zarya and Pedantic Romantic are far more valuable for an anime community because they know what they're talking about. They have at least looked at the history and looked at context behind whatever show is made. I mean, we might disagree on the opinions and conclusions, but
yeah,
Maname Matt is just not interested at all, and that is really more of a problem, I think.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think, as much as I don't like Zarya and Pedantic Romantic, I think that that is some credit you can give them, right? Even if I don't agree with their conclusions or their theses, right? I can agree that they do at least put some work in to prop up their stuff rather than claiming to be casual and using that as an excuse for spreading fucking misinformation.
Yeah, at least they stand by what they say.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I genuinely don't like Pedantic just from some of the things I've seen about it, but Zarya, I'm okay with.
Yeah, I mean, we should keep our personal taste.
Yeah, personal taste aside.
Fuck you! I'm going to say I don't like Pedantic, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, I think that you're right. I think we need more education in terms of YouTubers, which I guess is why we're here, actually, isn't it? Try and
well,
critique.
We're not terrible good educators ourselves.
No, we're not. But I mean, we're at least critiquing these people and how they're educating.
Or at least challenging what a lot of people are just assuming is correct because a person with big numbers said it's correct.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting at.
Like, real talk, Ellie, you actually do need to give us just a little bit more credit.
Well, I'm not really one to self-congratulate.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I'm just being
humble.
I'm
humble,
but
I'm very humble. You see.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we do definitely need more pause and selects in the world. I think definitely. To use him as an example, I think there needs to be honest, there needs to be more people like the Under the Scope guy that we did in a previous episode. Because even though we disagreed with his video and we didn't really, find much, it wasn't a particularly fantastic video, it was a fucking good video to talk about in terms of the discussion and to break down his points, right? And I think we need more of that, right? Because disagreement and conflict and stuff is not necessarily bad. It's just when you have people that are so hyperbolic and so, charged up, I guess is the best way to put it, that they're literally going around and calling people pedophiles for liking art, it causes problems. Because how do you rationally counter that, right? How do you counter someone screaming at you, right? It's not really easy to do, is it?
You walk away, and that's the problem. The only way to actually counter somebody screeching like that is to walk away and let them just calm themselves down. Which is why, no offense, Naretsu, but I genuinely wonder why the hell you engage with them 90% of the time, because it seems like
I don't know either.
I don't
know either, man.
Seems like it's just I don't know, encouraging them sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been trying to pull away from that Twitter drama bullshit, but it keeps dragging me back in. I keep getting dragged. Yeah, oh man, that dopamine, man. I'm telling you, it's fucking crazy. And I think that's part of the problem. I think people get but that kind of goes more into social media as a whole rather than just the gatekeeping topic. The idea of how social media is sort of affecting us in terms of our communication. So yeah. I think this has been it's been a bit of a scattershot discussion, but I think I think it's been okay.
Well, maybe in a distant future we'll do something like Or I'll keep a bullet point list or something. But
yeah, this is
you
just
know,
we're doing this as kind of like a test show, right? Like we're kind of testing the waters with some different formats because let's be real here, AniTube has been pretty fucking dry. Hasn't really been a whole lot come out that we think is particularly worth kind of covering right at the moment. So we're sort of just experimenting with new show ideas to kind of cut our teeth on. So
give us things to do.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I think we should probably cut it off here. And yeah, thanks for listening to us ramble for God knows how long.
And maybe until next time on Taking the Stand.
Taking the Stand.
You need to cut out right here with like power metal.
No, Jojo and
yeah, stand tall.